And we are back and ready to continue day 3 of the First Strike Close Qualifiers presented by Nerd Straight Gamers. My name is Bach. Joining me is Esports Doug and Simo Wastikin, as he's been called in close circles, everyone who knows him well. It's great and very interesting last name.
I'm so happy this is stuck. I really
Listen, it's all your fault, Doug.
I know it. I don't feel bad. I'm not sorry.
Okay, I get it. I'd rather be Simo Wastikin than the vice president of the Reina Cosplay Fan Club. I'm fine. I'll be Simo Wastikin. You deal with your cosplay club. I'm chilling. I'm okay.
To be fair, though, vice president is an important and powerful position, and who knows, one day maybe you could transcend and take the president role away from whoever is in that position. I actually imagine it's Simo, and he runs it through several shell companies, so no one can trace it back to him.
Yeah.
It's just Simo Wastikin backwards, which is what? Nakatsoimos? Like, it's like that's his name. I don't know. It's something like that. But either way, we just watched Gen.G and Complexity fight for that #1 seed, and Complexity was surprising. They played very well, much better than I think anyone anticipated that they would. And they proved that that early win over T1 was not a fluke, and that T1 was not underplaying, that Complexity is just the real deal. You know, Gen.G, I don't think they played necessarily bad. I think Complexity just played better. Maybe I'm wrong, but you can take a look at the bracket here. Doug, am I mistaken? Was Complexity just playing that much better, or was Gen.G making a lot of mistakes that were maybe uncharacteristic?
I think there were a couple of mistakes that you could point to, right? One of the first ones that comes to mind is that dash in where Win dashes into Sean, unfortunately, as they're trying to flood onto the B site. So there are little things like that, but I think by and large, you can't chalk up that win for Complexity to mistakes on behalf of Gen.G. The truth is, Complexity just played really well, right? Jonah P, hero time and time again. The way they played, the map, was really impressive. So by and large, yeah, Gen.G left a couple of things on the table, a couple of things that they could fine tune and fix, and potentially it's not a 2-0 sweep with those things corrected, but I think Complexity was playing so well, it's hard to argue that that would not have been the case otherwise.
Yeah, Simo, T1 had an opportunity to kind of sit back and watch this morning. You know, if anything, they have a lot to gain from watching that series earlier against Complexity. The way that Gen.G played, they can maybe look to capitalize on some of the mistakes. Do you think that's going to give a massive advantage to T1, or do you think that Gen.G still has a bit of a leg up just because of the history of the roster when compared to T1, who's not the same roster that we've seen in the past when we were looking back to like the Ignition series?
I think it's honestly a little bit of both. If we look at how T1 plays, they tried to slow the pace down against Complexity, but that didn't really work. The success that they did find was nullifying some of those aggressive 2-man or 3-man peaks that we didn't really see a whole lot from Complexity, but that's because they kind of spread out a little bit more and try to create a couple more flanking opportunities. And we're going to be looking at Brax to do that for T1. He is the main, point person to try to wrap around and try to find an opportunity. If he can find some success against Gen.G, Gen.G will fall apart once again, but it all boils down to Brax. And the problem is, of course, as we will obviously get into this, is the map pool doesn't really favor T1. So that is one thing that does end up favoring Gen.G in the grand picture of this best of 3.
Before we get into the map pool, you mentioned Brax, so why don't we use this as an opportunity to go ahead and look at the head-to-head between these two teams. We'll take a peek at what the rosters are going to look like as we get ready to watch T1 and Gen.G. Now, we know what to expect from Gen.G. We just saw them, and we know what some of those pieces might be. The question is whether or not T1 will have a direct match for Sean, who has, in the short history, I can't say historically, but in the short history, has had a chance to prove that he can be a very vital piece of Gen.G's performance, especially when he gets himself in that position of the Reina. Do they have someone on the other side, though, that could potentially be that Sean neutralizer? And we'll go ahead and take a look at the rosters. Brax, AZK, Skadoodle, and Spider may be the one that has to go head-to-head there with Sean. Doug, you know, looking at these two teams, you obviously have a lot of history on the right side, especially when looking at other games. Like CSGO obviously comes to mind, but even a game like Overwatch. Is there enough star power here, despite the lack of history with this roster? They haven't had much time with these 5 players to potentially best Gen.G in a best of 3.
Yeah, I think there are a few things that T1 has going for them, right? Number one, Spider's still getting acclimated to his role. While we could have conversations on whether or not he's being utilized as effectively as he could be, that's a different conversation to have altogether. What is worth noting, though, is that Spider continues to grow more and more comfortable. He's played Omen primarily, and we've even seen T1 put him in positions of power, even on that Omen. They've put the op in his hands time and time again, but honestly, Skadoodle's going to light up the scoreboard, right? Daze is going to put up plenty of frags as well, but my eyes are on Brax. Simo mentioned him earlier as the pivot point around the map that they play around, but honestly, Brax, the last time we commentated T1, it was Brax who was lighting up the kill feed. It was Brax who was leading the frags for the squad on the Cypher, no less, which is obviously not impossible, but the kit doesn't lend itself to that, which is what makes it so surprising. So in my opinion, they do have the tools here, right? They can easily catch Gen.G off. And the other thing is, we mentioned this on the previous broadcast, the pedigree to T1 is top of the line, right? Think about one of the most successful esports organizations across the board. They are not comfortable. They are not really used to losing. And as we see this roster continue to build and grow together and get more and more cohesive, I think they're only going to get stronger.
I mean, Simo, looking at Skadoodle as a player, you know, there was a time where we were kind of not thrilled with his performance. It felt like he was not living up to maybe what some of the expectations were. And on the flip side, you've got Huynh, who facilitates a similar role for Gen.G, who was fine, I would say serviceable, but has since improved that performance. We'll take a look at the maps as we're almost ready to jump into the action, though. It's going to be Ascent for map 1, Haven, and then Split. Bind got banned first, so the map pool potentially could work for either team here. The interesting one is going to be that Haven pick, but I believe we are just about ready to jump into the action. Simo, Doug, take it away to see who's going to be coming out on top of the series, T1 or Gen.G.
Thank you so much, Bach. You know, we didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about the map selection there, but Gen.G getting the top seed means they ban Bind away from T1, and T1 don't have the luxury of playing on a map that they are incredibly comfortable on. It all boils down to this first map here for T1. This is the map that they chose. Gen.G gets side selection, so they pick the defense first, and it all boils down to if T1 can take this one map for themselves, we might see a series that goes the distance to 3 maps.
You mentioned how it really comes down to this map, and Simo, I think you're absolutely right. Both of these squads are very good on Ascent, right? We just saw Gen.G lose on this map, but they both carry very good records into this map. So this one, I think, is going to be the difference maker. Haven is tough. T1 has not played Haven at all this tournament, and then when you get to Split, both of them don't have a ton of reps, and really neither of them are very impressive on this map, or at least haven't, or on that map, excuse me, or at least haven't been up until this point. So it really does come down to Ascent. Who is going to be able to establish separation from one another? Who's going to be able to set the pace throughout the whole series? That's what I'm going to be keeping an eye out on.
The fact that Gen.G just played this map means that they have at least warmed up on it. But we'll have to see what adaptations, what they change. I'd imagine Coach Blank has something to say about how that series unfolded up against Complexity. But we've seen this site hit from T1 before. They work their way up through the middle, and then they hit at the same time from B main and on the site. We'll see if Gen.G can actually survive, because they've got 2 members in the back of the site.
Right, they just have to buy time and let resources get there, but unfortunately both Guman and Mikhail are going to fall before the reinforcements, before the cavalry arrives. Now they're going to start to show up. Player 1 has to wait for his teammates, though, to ensure that it's going to be a concerted push from both ends. Sean and Win are going to be coming in as well. There's going to be Brax. Brax, the guy who said we need to keep an eye out for, not going to be in the action this time around. Sean gets the best of him with a frenzy. The clock continues to tick.
Yeah, 25 seconds left on that clock, so not a lot of time left. Need 7 seconds to defuse, and time is ticking. Maybe Gen.G have given that thought up and are just looking for exits, but it seems that they are the ones that are exiting this realm. It's down to Sean. He finds a pick early, but with 10 seconds remaining, T1 should be able to survive. Not really need to leave the site. T1 win the pistol. A great start for them on this first half.
You mentioned that that was a look that we've seen from T1 in the past, the aggressive push through market, or really from both sides as you're funneling onto B, and it paid off. We'll see if they continue to do that again. We've also seen a couple of really interesting looks from T1 on the A side as well.
Sorry, go ahead. No, they just forced up. They forced
okay.
up, and I'm just, Gen.G are just like, stop the bleeding. Stop it. Stop it, please. They just want to force up. They want to bring the issue to T1. An interesting look from Sean and Win. They're held up in that cubby. No one is in that vicinity. Player one's going to be the first contact point about this potential eventual push towards the A site. But considering there's no catwalk control, it could be difficult for them to break open onto the site that way.
Yeah, not to mention both Win and Sean are going to be hanging out around the tree room area. Should T1 try to establish some sort of catwalk control. For now, Mikhail's going to get... Yeah, I believe he tagged him up. No, he wasn't able to tag him up at all. All right, so just a bit of trading of utility in exchange for information here. Once again, it looks like T1's going to be trying to push their way up middle through Cat. They did spot Win. Win's going to be forced to back up. He manages to get away, but he is still tagged up. But the thing is, I don't think they know that Sean is there.
You normally see something like this as well. You've got the buddy system where a player is just trying to cause a ruckus and sell the information that he was the only player there. But T1 don't even have any business going towards the catwalk side. Oh, Mikhail, that's so unfortunate. Brack's about to come through, finds him, takes him down. Guimond now just trying to escape. He does get revealed by the recon bolt there, but now the paranoia is just going to try to help him out. But AZK stepped out of position, and now it's down to the 3v4 in favor of T1 on Gen.G's 4-sub. They need to make this work.
They need to make it work indeed. The spike has been playing to Gen.G once again, going to be trying to fight to get some semblance of control back on the B site. This time T1's pulse planes are a bit different as they're a bit more spread out. Player one's already sitting on the sideline. Spider goes in, takes care of Sean. One member left. And it's Win with 10 health. And not a ton of artillery to work with either. He's just going to back off. They gambled. They forced up to try to even things up at 1, and it has not paid off.
All down a win. And that means for T1, they'll likely be moving on to the third round here, as Gen.G will not have a lot to work with. Win down to 10 HP, just trying to escape the grasp of Spider here, but once you get caught in the web, it can be difficult to run away. With 1 second remaining, he should be able to survive. He'll be right as rain. So one weapon moves on. It's just a Stinger. The rest of Gen.G likely going to buy up with the Sheriffs. They are on the second round loss bonus, which means that they've got 2,400 coming in. So they'll be able to at least kind of balance out the economy and be able to buy in the next upcoming round. Considering they lose this, they'll get 2,900, and it'll be the gun round for them. But it's a little late than normal. You know, the 4-sub really causes you to bleed more rounds than you would like. So T1 have a great opportunity to build up some of their own economy here.
I like that cheeky little cam from player one. I believe, I don't know that they spotted him doing that, actually. AZK taps on the orb. Is able to get away. Yep, there's a cam. It got taken out. Spider got tagged up, but I believe, yeah, the camera was cleared. The spike is not left T1 spawn as they're mulling over which way they want to go. They're investing a lot towards A and middle, and they have one anchor back by B, and it's Brax, but nothing committed so far.
So you see where Skadoodle is right now? I learned the other day that that is called Sabrosa. Did you know that there's already a spot in the map named after a player? I don't even know. No. There's a clip out there. Apparently Sabrosa probably just pops off in that little corner. But I didn't even know that they're already starting to name spots of the map after people. That is, you love to see it though. You truly do. I know CS has some memorabilia, you know, splattered around varying maps to commemorate different players. That is just good to see that Valorant is, we're near there. We're not too far away from that. And Sean is a little far away from this round as he's going to have to sit this one out. A quick push in there from Brax. He goes in alone. Gen.G were really focused on the A side of the map, but it's T1 that find a little bit more space and will now start to funnel their resources over towards that side.
And once again, we saw this against Complexity. T1 perfectly okay with playing very slow early on and then making a hard hit. That's exactly what's going down here on the B site. The thing is, they don't even require much of a hard hit at all. Gen.G just down to 2 members left. Player one, very weak. So the hit, it can be like a sneeze at this point, and they're going to blow Gen.G over. T1 in firm control.
Flawless round for them means the economy stays exactly where they want it to. I'd imagine there's a lot of heavy armor that has been untouched, and that, look at Brax, 7,100. He's going to obviously buy some utility, so that's going to bleed a little bit, but Gen.G desperately need this round. If they don't put this one together, this half is going to slip away very quickly. And I say that because T1 are sitting on a pile of money. A pile. It's all piled up in the attacker spawn. They've got Smog protecting it and all that good stuff. For Gen.G, they need this round. If they don't find it, T1 will slip away with a huge economy lead into round 5.
Here the Bladestorm has been used from Skadoodle to try to continue to build on that lead. Win expecting a bit of a cheeky peek. Waiting, nothing has been spotted yet. But his spidey senses tingling that way are correct. As you see on the minimap, T1 at least leaning that way for now. But they have not committed.
Shadows traveling.
T1, their mid control consistently consists of, I mean, that sounds counterintuitive. It consists of this constant look towards the middle. And Gen.G have consistently given it up. They have a tripwire there, but it's this lack of mid control that I think really favors T1. Because if they want to go hit the B site, they constantly, well, not constantly, but a lot of their looks encourage presence towards the mid side. And if Gen.G completely give it up, they're leaving their boots on the ground, maybe playing contact on the sites themselves, but the rolling carpet's going to be rolled out. Win finds an early pick, escapes, and now Gen.G forced to play the retake in an advantageous position.
Yeah, very well played. For him to get that pick and get away with his life was exactly what Gen.G needed. Yeah, the spike is going to go down, but Gen.G from a position of power are going to be able to fight back. The only thing is that T1 is establishing their post-plant positions. Furthermore, you see the Sova rotating away on that anchor spot in case anyone catches around the flank. They're waiting for it. Win's going to get a chance. No, Win's going to get taken out. He gets CC'd and is completely taken care of.
It's down to 2 for T1. Gen.G slowly but surely make their way onto the site, and really it's off of the TF2 heavy. Mikael with the Odin just walks in, takes him down. Win will manage to get that up into the second round, and now the economy should balance out because T1 are going to invest a lot. They've got a lot of credits, but they'll be buying up completely. So Gen.G need to string one more together to find that equilibrium, to have the economy in the exact same space. Both teams will be relatively even. So another very important round for momentum here for Gen.G. Let's see how the setup looks. Once again, no presence towards the middle, but look, Win back towards that B main spot, looking for another peek, but he's learned. He's backed off a little bit. He's in that same spot where we saw him get a crispy clean 4K, I believe. But T1 are nowhere near that spot. They're interested in the A site this time around.
It was interesting. Once again, you expect to see a bit of a slow start for T1 in the opening moments of the round, which we saw, and which everyone has really grown to expect from T1. But it is interesting. You mentioned the I guess lack of control, if you will, from Gen.G across the middle of the map. It's actually something very similar to what we see whenever Killjoy is being played, right? Oftentimes, it's not a tripwire, which just got taken out, by the way. It's an alarm bot that's put there as teams feel very comfortable with just kind of giving that up, and they'll drop some utility there as a cue that somebody may be coming. But by and large, as we've seen the meta evolve on this map specifically, we see more and more of that. T1 looking to expose that, however, yet again.
Oh, that was... Oh, if Win had just walked in just an inch forward, he would have found Brax looking at a camera, but now he's going to find himself in an engagement nonetheless. He's trying to smoke himself off to safety. The paranoia comes through. He's still being sprayed. He's still trying to get close. Holy smokes, an upshot to the dome. But they still, once again, the classic play from T1. Work their way through the middle and work their way through B main. They've got control, but it's temporary as Gen.G are coming for the retake.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, though. They're all going to be coming from the same spot. Fortunately for them, nobody on T1 is going to be playing around that anchor spot, which means they're going to be able to get through the middle just fine. The spike has been planted. It's going to be straight up 4v4. Gen.G is going to have that Empress, so keep that in mind as a possibility, as a wrinkle to the plan, should they choose to go that way. You mentioned at the beginning of the round that Gen.G just needs one more to try to equalize the financial situation here. But it's a tough one.
20 seconds left. Time is ticking. Gen.G do this all the time. They play with fire. Time is of the essence, and that is the 5th player, the 6th player in the lobby. But unfortunately for them, so is Spider as they get caught in the web. The Venom strikes all down to player 1, and Spider will take him down. He will unfortunately fall to the spike. All members on both sides will fall. Gen.G try to stall out the economy, but lose the round in the process.
And Spider there being able to hold down, remain with presence in his smoke. He gets challenged, is able to win that straight up 1v1, and then at that point he just swings, and it's just like shooting fish in a barrel. Got 2 members of Gen.G that he's able to mow down. Again, Spider, we talked about how exciting of an addition it was to this roster, the background that he has, how well we've seen that pay off with other players who have transitioned from there. On the Omen, you know, we can talk about should he be on a duelist, but either way, he's having significant impact early on.
It does feel like T1's roster, Spider specifically, flip-flops between having good games and bad games, but that's really the team's responsibility to have players like Skadoodle and Brax step up. So the fact that you can shift the weight consistently really bodes well for you and having a lot of flexibility with the roster altogether. Player 1, though, is not going to be very flexible. He's being cornered in here, and we're not looking at that same mid flank that we normally see, but Player 1 is still able to find 2 picks, deny this push from T1, and gives Gen.G so much time to get onto the site. Player 1, holy smokes, he stopped 3, and now there's 2 more remaining. The paranoia from the side. Brax is still participating, but it's a 1v3, and he'll be taken down by the Knives of Win. I wish we saw some of that action towards Brax, because he still put on a show, but Gen.G still win the round.
That was huge from him as well. And again, it was a situation in which he was back there by himself. The last line of defense holding down that site. And in a situation like that, as we saw earlier on the map, his objective is to buy time, right? Like, just buy time so that his team can show up to provide some resources, some backup. But this, in that instance, he didn't have to buy time. He was able to take care of them all by himself. So Player 1 with a very strong start there, very good hold on that site from that back angle. And then just when things got dicey and everyone knew exactly where he was, that's where the second man came in, or well, all 5 really of them came in and were able to take care of the rest of T1. A very strong hold there from Gen.G.
You know, what I find very interesting about the A-side hits for T1 is that they have no catwalk control, and that is where a lot of the focus is for Gen.G. Sometimes they'll have boots on the ground on the A-site, but T1 have very rarely entertained the idea of poking through the catwalk entryway to the tree room. We see a lot of teams run that execute, and to be fair, Gen.G and Complexity were both running that execute on their respective attacking sides, but T1, they like the middle of the map better. They like to divide the team and play point in the defender spawn, or other funnel in through the fruit market and make their way onto the B site. But look at this fake. Smoke down, wall broken. This is going to pull Gen.G members off to anticipate a B site push, but it never was. It was A site all along.
Yeah, and it didn't look like they bit very hard at all. They're still going to be Win playing across the middle, and Sean this time is going to be the one who's able to get an opening frag and buy time. The thing is, it still doesn't look like they know very much of what's going on. Now that's going to give the position away. Player 1, once again, in an anchor spot, gets 1 looking for a second. And yeah, baby, serve it up and give it to him once again in a position where he's going to be able to cause some serious problems for T1. However, AZK takes care of him once again. It's going to be a flank, however, from Skadoodle going through tree. He takes care of Sean, dashes his way in. He's able to take care of Win as well. But not before Win joins in on the action. Skadoodle playing ring around the Rosie. Oh, he's able to get 1, but he's only got 2 bullets left. He's going to have to reload a 1v1. He dashes away.
God.
He's got the blade sword as well. And Skadoodle gets 4.
You guys.
Oh my goodness. I thought Skadoodle was screwed there. He came so late to the party. He finds that engagement against Sean in the tree room. And after that, the best thing a player can do in a 1v-many scenario is to take as many 1v1s as possible. The ring around the Rosie really helped out around the generator. And then the fact that he got the reset on the tailwind, magnifico. Skadoodle finds an important round, and look at the back and forth. The loss bonus has been atrocious for Gen.G. They couldn't handle that type of pressure, and T1's economy, well, it's just fine.
Gosh, that was so pretty to watch. Skadoodle is going to bring the Blade Storm into this round. As Spider gets the best of Sean early on, he's going to get picked off. However, as Gen.G play this far more aggressively, Daze is forced to push back, and it looks like just like 2 ships passing in the night, these 2 teams rotate around each other, straight up 3v3 as the spike has gone down on B.
T1 definitely didn't come in as prepared as they would have hoped for this round, leaving Skadoodle with just a classic in the Blade Storm. On the opposite side, Gen.G have found a couple of upgrades here and there, but it's down to the jet battle. Skadoodle versus Win. He's about to peek through, finds a headshot onto one. Maybe here's a footstep or two, but he's down to a 3v2 here. The rest of the team don't need to help him out. Oh, yeah, baby! Skadoodle with the dunk. All down to Guimont. He's going to have to back away. There's no way he comes out of this one alive, but he is looking for a couple of exits, up to no good. Brax will take him down. Wow. What a play there from Skadoodle. There was a huge opportunity for Gen.G to open up that site, but the fact that, once again, Skadoodle found 2 individual 1v1s and found great success taking them down.
And you mentioned prior to that going down that he might not have been as well prepared as he would have liked. All he had was the classic in the Blade Storm, and Skadoodle says, listen, guy, that's plenty. That's all I need right now. Once again, as you mentioned, Skadoodle with a huge play for T1. That was an important anchor spot. As you said, that cracks that site right open. But T1 was able to hold fast on those post plants with the Blade Storm, no less, and win the round for T1. Gen.G certainly feeling the pressure here. They're down 4 rounds. And this has got to feel a little reminiscent of how things went down up against Complexity. Again, this is a good map for Gen.G historically, but once again, they find themselves down.
I just have to go on record to say that statistically across the open qualifier, T1 has a better win percentage on the defense. We're still on the attack for T1, so this is going to be the comparison is 58% on the attack and 73% on the defense. So once we hop over, it's going to be a little bit of a tougher time, I'd imagine, for Gen.G. However, this is T1's map pick. They still have to go to their... They haven't played Haven at all, but they still have to end up going to that map anyway. So Gen.G have a huge opportunity to bounce the series back and take us to that 3rd map. So we're going to wait till we get there. Still not out of the woods quite yet, but considering T1 have put on such a phenomenal performance thus far, I'd imagine Haven is going to be very important for Gen.G.
Yeah, look, Gen.G have given up the site. The spike is down, and they just got the heck out of dodge. But Brax is going fishing, folks, as he's looking for a kill. Guimont seems to be holding that angle that he was just considering peeking over, but now the other members of T1 have shown up. This is action on the opposite side of the map, away from everything that's going down. Now T1 is starting to funnel in. Mikhail gets one. Brax trades it out. There's just one left on the side of Gen.G. T1 adding insult to injury. They're going to get the spike down. It's going to take care of business. They're going to get those credits, and they're going to get all the kills to boot.
Yeah, that is tough. Let's have a quick look at Gen.G's economy here. It is not great. 3 rounds remain. Let's think about how this bounces back. Worst case scenario, they lose this one. They're still going to get max loss bonus. They win the second one out of the 3 that remain. They get more money, and then it'll boil down to another 4-step. So we've got 2 gun rounds on the precipice here for Gen.G. So best case scenario, 8-4. Worst case scenario, 10-2. We'll have to see after this round because it's going to be a little bit of a tougher one for Gen.G. But this aggressive push towards A main might actually work out well for them.
Oh, the paranoia. Oh, the paranoia was so good, but it hasn't mattered up until this point as AZK is able to get 3. Yeah, player 1 got 1 of them, but the damage has been done. Gen.G down to 2 members left.
Yeah, the Stinger's not going to really help out Guimont a whole lot. They're going to use the Hedwig there to clear him out. Send a couple of posts, a couple of pieces of mail to Harry Potter, but Hedwig does not find Guimont there. But they still want to hit this A site. You were waiting. I know you were.
Hedwig, ladies and gentlemen, the Owl Drone has been dubbed Hedwig, no less. Another memorable moment from our very own Simo Wastikin. Absolutely unreal. Gen.G just down to 2 members left as the spike rotates back towards B. T1 looking to continue to pile it on to Gen.G here. Simo, I've got to tell you, I was not expecting this out of Complexity, and to be honest with you, I don't know that I was expecting this out of T1 right now. Gen.G hasn't been able to stop anything.
Well, let's take a look at T1 for a quick second, okay? 1, they've had some time to sleep off their loss and their victory, their loss against Complexity and their victory against Equinox, right? They've had some time to kind of let it simmer, correct? Second thing is that pictures were disclosed today of T1. They're all together. They're all playing in the same room. They're in one room together, communicating. You could see the body language. You could see how the teams are reacting. And that is the best case scenario for players. When we get to LAN, you're going to see some teams shine and some teams really suffer. Because not only Does LAN help team chemistry? But you also get the same ping. It's going to be 0 across the board, hopefully, if that's what the LAN events end up looking like. So, for Gen.G, I don't exactly know their scenario, but I'd imagine that they're not all playing in the same room. And I know that some might think, well, that's not so important. Like what does that matter? It matters for the team cohesion. It matters for the communication. It matters that you can see your player, your teammate in the eye and say, good job, and build up confidence within each other. That is an important factor to consider, especially with T1 all playing together.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just adds a different wrinkle, right? There's a different energy when everyone is there together, and it's all about chemistry, and it's all about how the team is performing mentally that makes a big difference. Let's see what T1's cooking up here. A bit more of a conservative look, expecting an aggressive push from Gen.G down towards A. Nothing doing yet, but they were certainly ready for it. Win, however, just down to 7 health. There's that jump peak, not going to connect. Tough scenes early on here for Gen.G.
For the first time ever, Gen.G had an aggressive look towards the middle as well. They had 2 members on the bench waiting for potentially a player to peek out to try to take out Win. And if he fell, they would double peek out the courtyard. But, I mean, T1 have been like hawks in the courtyard consistently. Having a player towards the catwalk, having a player towards the B lobby. They've just had players consistently there and looking to control the middle. So Gen.G had control temporarily, but they lost it as Win just continuously getting pushed off. And that seems to be the recipe for success for teams to take down Gen.G. It just seems time and time again, anytime Win is in an uncomfortable position, Gen.G have to give up space. Space they don't want to give up because eventually you get choked into a corner and you can't do much because you just get sprayed down. So very tough position to be in, but they still have to wait for the hit, which is once again the T1 special. 3 through the fruit market and 2 towards B main.
Yeah, it's a bit more aggressive of a defensive position from Sean here. He's going to get flashed up. Is still able to get one. He's going to reposition himself, but unfortunately dismisses right into the warm, welcoming arms of Brax, the leader for T1, able to take care of him. But Guimon back behind the site is able to get one. AZK trades it out. Win with the blades, not able to do enough damage. Brax is going to be able to get the spike down, but it did not matter.
No, they didn't get the spike down.
Last round in the hash.
What?
No way, they ran out of time.
What? I thought they had plenty of time from T1.
I thought so too.
What a mistake from T1. That is not a round you just want to give away to Gen.G. I know that your defensive side is much better on Ascent, but you don't want to chalk it up to a round. This is an elimination match. A team has to go home today. A team that we never thought, statistically moving into this one, everyone with their Ignition Series preconceived notions thought Gen.G and T1, yeah, they're moving on, no problem. No, it's T1 or Gen.G that have to go home now, and T1 lose a round off of a slight mistake. They're going to have to polish that one up for the round ahead as T1 poke inside the B site, take a look around, and back away as they've pulled so many of the resources over from Gen.G towards the B site. They've faked it out completely, exactly to what T1 wanted. Now this A site hit is going to be a little bit easier as they've gathered so much of the attention towards this B site.
Members of T1 beginning to stack up right outside of A. Drone's going to come out. Win's going to spot it, blast it out. There's the follow-up to Win once again. He's been pushed off many a time, but that's 2 or 3 rounds now where Win has been able to make that bad boy sing early on and get an opening pick.
Yeah, it's important for the confidence for Gen.G as well. T1 thought that they had all rotated those players out, but Gen.G anticipating maybe some shenanigans as the B site. There wasn't any action. After the utility was called, after all of that was played out, they anticipated, okay, well, we're not seeing anything. Let's just make sure that the A site is clear because they all ran away from it, right? At the moment that they realized the A site might be a potential hit, there was a player in defender spawn. That was the closest player towards the A site. So they needed to make sure that they could double back. And now that T1 is actually interested in the A site, Gen.G have prepared themselves accordingly.
T1 beginning to funnel in. This time it's going to be through tree room. Sean's going to be there. He's able to take her one spot to another one going by, and he takes care of Skidoo in the flash. He's able to take care of AZK as well. T1's just down to Brax. He's got an operator, but he doesn't have any more health. The flawless round from Gen.G to close the half. What a statement.
Switching sides.
I called the 8-4 would be the best case scenario for Gen.G, and boy, did they make it work. There's going to be an uphill battle for this half, but let's have a look at some of those replays powered and presented by GoPuff. A lot of it started off of this play here from Spider. Player one was, to be fair, a constant nuisance, especially with this play coming up. He finds 3 on the site and the spike down, gives so much time for Gen.G to rotate over. And it really was, to some extent, always up to player one or always up to win. And once again, player one, what's he doing here? That's right, he's stopping the spike from being planted. But then you also have to consider on the flip side, T1 always were in a position to find clutches in their own right. When you have players like Skadoodle, you have players like Brax, and in the beginning, Spider, you can rely on them to perform, and boy, have they throughout the course of this first half. Now moving on to the second, T1 on the defense. Let's see if it's as strong as the attack.
Gen.G initial postures by B. Gonna get lured off. Wynn's actually gonna dash in with the frenzy. No less, it looks like the spike has made its way onto B. Gen.G should be able to get the plant down.
Planted.
And now T1 have to play the retake. Brax is coming extra late to the party. He's thinking about the flank while T1 have membership towards the fruit market and towards the alleyway leading towards the defender spawn. Gen.G are stuck. There is a player playing point, Mikhail, anticipating a potential flank, but Brax decides against it. So there's a player playing B main while the rest are on site. T1 have a difficult job ahead. Now Sean's going to see a couple of members coming through. He's going to dismiss out. So much space gathered. They're going to take them apart one at a time. AZK will trade. So will Daze, but the spike is ticking and they need to start the defuse. There's a player that hops out. It's Win, and it's down to the 1v1. Brax versus Win. They end up in a 1v1, but both get eradicated by the spike radiation nonetheless. Gen.G win the pistol of the second half and close that gap by 3.
Yeah, they needed that pistol round real bad. You imagine, depending on how T1 plays this, right? If they opt to force up, it's obviously a very spicy, different conversation, but it looks like they're just going to be bringing pistols in, at least for now. 15 seconds to mull it over and decide what their approach will be. Conservative or a roll of the die. Gen.G have shown that they're perfectly comfortable rolling the die and forcing up, but T1 a bit more conservative, as we've seen in how they play the map and now how they manage their finances as well. You imagine this round, without Bladestorm in tow, goes in favor of Gen.G probably 8 times out of 10. Which means they're going to bring that gap down to 6. T1 feels a bit more pressure, but let's see if they can fend off the aggression from Gen.G.
I like the attempt from Brax because once he gets tagged with the Owl Drone, he's got a second before it pulses again. And so he's like, I'm going to push into the cage because it's his cage, right? It's his cage that is there. So it doesn't make a noise when he comes through, but it does make a noise when Gen.G members come through. So he's trying to catch Sean out of position, but they don't actually execute on the A site. And so T1 are like, well, where are they? We thought they were going to push in. Where did they go?
Oh, no.
This is going to be a little bit of a tougher spot. It's unfortunate for T1. Yeah, look around. It's Win. There's one more player left. Gen.G played that so well. Even though it was the eco for T1, they played that so incredibly well. And I understand T1 were investigating the crime scene. They can afford to because they don't have the most ideal weaponry, but still well played from Gen.G.
Yeah, they had nothing to lose, but as you mentioned, it was a crossfire that Sean and Win were able to set up there that just was ultimate, the last nail in the coffin, if you will, for T1. And, you know, I think the interesting thing worth mentioning, we've seen this a couple of times, and Timo, we haven't talked about it a ton. Sean and Win often play attached at the hip, right? When you talk about buddy systems in Valorant and how being able to trade kills early on is so important, those two guys tend to be there together. We saw it on that crossfire right there, exiting A onto A long. We'll keep a close eye on how that continues. Meanwhile, both teams have already lost one of their personnel.
T1, an important round here. It's a gun round for them. Losing this one would catapult Gen.G back into even standing. That is not something T1 want to be in a position to think about. If we think about this matchup, if Gen.G win this map, we have no idea what T1 look like on Haven. They could be abysmal. They could be crispy clean. We have no idea. And that ultimately scares and excites Gen.G because they're pretty good on Haven, even though they lost to a complexity early on in the previous series. Early looks here. Gimon will find Skadoodle, an important player down for the count, and it's a 4v3 retake for T1.
The other thing to mention is that Gen.G still has some lighter weapons to work with here, right? They didn't all force up with their rifles. They brought some of the SMGs that they had from the previous round, so this is a huge financial round for both of these squads. Gen.G, if they're able to pull this away without having very many casualties, are going to be in a financial sweet spot. And T1, as you mentioned, on a bye. Here on a gun round for them, it's important for them to try to be able to convert. It looks like they might be able to save the weapons, at least, as they're trying to pin Gen.G down back in the site and hope that the spike is going to deal some of the damage, but Gen.G is able to rotate away. The important thing there is, yes, T1 lost the round, but they were able to keep 3 guns into the next one.
If you are just joining us, Cloud9, of course, victorious over 100 Thieves. Congratulations to Cloud9 for moving on. 100 Thieves will have to play the loser, or sorry, in the losers bracket. I forget against who. I think it's Luminosity. But if you're just joining us, Complexity earlier on in the day 2-0'd Gen.G to move on as the first seed, and we are now witnessing the losers bracket qualification round. Gen.G or T1 have to go home, and this is map 1 of that best of 3 series. So hopefully you enjoyed the ride of Cloud9 against 100 Thieves, and now you can join us for this one with Gen.G against T1.
Yeah, and then to add a little bit more backstory for you, T1 came out of the gate swinging. Gen.G has brought it close, and it's because of stuff like that. Win has come online. It was a slow start up against Complexity, but he has certainly found his footing as he gets to opening pick in the round.
Dazed, unfortunately, Tony Montana would not be proud of that Odin play. He does not get the spray that he was looking for. T1 still just trying to hold on to the site, but unfortunately, Brax, once again, as far from the action as the eye can see. Gen.G will be able to get the spike planted, but Spider's got other plans in store. Little does he know Win playing on that 50 angle towards the archway there. But the fact that he's been smoked off is going to give Win an opportunity to switch locations if he wants to, but he's going to hold that one down. Gen.G just going to wait for the spike to time out. As for some reason, Brax is still on the catwalk. Maybe he's thinking that there is a lurking play from Gen.G, but they don't normally have any lurking plays when they get the spike planted. Complexity had plenty, but Gen.G, not so much.
Yeah, and look, this time T1 is not even willing to put themselves in a position where they can try to box in Gen.G and let the spike deal the damage for them. They don't even want to risk potentially losing their weapons. So they fully forfeit control of the map. They fully forego any gunfights whatsoever, play the conservative way to carry their own guns into the next one. And folks, after an 8-4 half from T1, we're knotted up at 8 apiece.
This is exactly the position that T1 would not have wanted to see themselves in. Oh, I had highlighted that T1's a lot stronger on the defense than the offense, but it seems that that is not currently the case. Another opportunity here for T1 to find themselves back in that lead position. But if you lose this one, that is where you really start to consider, can Gen.G could just slip away with this first map and take us to a map where we don't know a whole lot about T1's Haven. So far, it's looking good for Gen.G. It started out rough, but they started to really come online. As you highlighted, Win, the person leading the charge at the moment, has been a prime factor of it, but Skadoodle's going to tell him to sit down. It was traded by Sean, but they still made their way onto the site.
He also is 1 point away from the Blade Storm. Narrowly misses that shot. AZK is able to get one with a bit of utility as well. As the spike goes down, they try to fight through heaven. This is a brutal way to retake this site, as we've seen time and time again, but so far, so good for T1. Mikhail on the flank, not able to get a very important kill. That leaves player 1 the last one standing, folks. We've seen player 1 pull off insane heroics before. This time, he's going to get tagged up. He's going to get spotted. The tripwire was there, fortunately. Wait. Okay, they do know he's able to get one. Give him the second. Drop things down to a 1v1, but the defuse is coming up. He's going to have to go aggressively. Skadoodle's able to get it to halftime. Skadoodle goes up, and player 1 brings him back down.
Come on, player 1. I talked about it in the first half. Yes, T1 finished at 8-4, but player 1 was consistently a problem. I don't know what kind of pep talk Blanca gave in the 6 minutes that we were on break before this best of 3, but this, something's changed. We're seeing Win at the top. We're seeing player 1 at the top, this is the exact Gen.G that we see. Unfortunately, Mikhail is usually at the bottom, but that's the Gen.G that we see. The Gen.G that we see Win time and time again. Win in player 1 popping off, and Mikhail supporting the team. Unfortunately, Skadoodle looking for some complex heroics, but it's the complexity of the heroics that will make him fall.
Well, and that's the crazy thing, Simo. We saw Complexity run that exact same play, right? Like, we saw that set piece coming out of Ohio, and it was very successful. This time, Skadoodle tries it. No dice. You mentioned this being a very different Gen.G from what we saw up against Complexity, and I think you are absolutely right, Timo. This Gen.G squad, even though they got pushed around a bit in the first half, are refusing to go away.
Oh, dazed. He's just trying to play contact, and he's going to get sprayed. The shock dart did not help, and the dismiss helps out Spider. Holy smokes, Sean was just trying to be the eyes for Gen.G, but it's still the advantage that they have. Spike being planted, and once again,
Spike
T1
planted.
are back in this retake position. Unfortunately, it's only Brax, it's only AZK, but a 2v3 possible here for T1.
Possible but difficult. Note the Rolling Thunder as a resource for AZK, and sure enough, thank you to the observers. They cut over to him, tries to get a little bit of info. Nothing doing quite yet. Player one's going to be on the flank as well, but it may not matter. Sean is able to take care of AZK. Brax, the last one standing, trying to create some space, and again, box Gen.G in, but they have plenty of routes to get out as well. They're going to get away. Brax might even... Oh, he might get one here. Nope. Sean waited for a while. I got a 4K on the round as well. Gen.G take a 2-round lead.
I mean, we also talked about Sean relieving some of that pressure for Gen.G. It seems like they don't need that pressure relieved this time around, as Win and Player One have had spectacular performance during some very important rounds. But Sean just comes out of the woodwork, drops a 4K, and he's like, yeah, I'll relieve some of that pressure, no problem. And this is the Sean that we'd love to see on Ascent. Moon Raccoons have a spectacular record on Ascent because of this player. He'd play the Sova, he'd play the Sinatra style of the Odin through the wall, but still, sometimes that wasn't necessary, and he would just hold down the B site with his life. We're seeing a completely different look from Sean, and boy, does it fit right in with the Gen.G roster.
Yeah, it has indeed, and again, a very different look from what we saw out of this Gen.G squad up against Complexity and T1. They started off very well, right? They looked really good, and we were having conversations about, well, crap, T1 going into the defending side, this is what they're better at, and then statistically, the map lends itself towards the defending side. Things not looking great for Gen.G, and man, have Gen.G stood strong. 6 rounds in this half, 8 rounds in a row. T1 have entirely lost their footing. They were in a position of control, but since then, Gen.G has just snatched it away, and they've been giving T1 fits for a while now. T1 hasn't been able to respond. They don't have anything going here.
Maybe a technical pause, maybe a tactical pause. I'd imagine for T1, a tactical one. Fraud talking some sense into T1. How can we lose 6 in a row, guys? Come on.
8.
A couple of gun rounds, or 8? Sorry. Well, I'm not considering the transition to the new half, but you're right. It is 8 rounds in a row. But this is not something that you normally see. Gen.G have been able to, balance out the economy after that second round conversion and really just sit tight and pretty on a bag of money. T1 have to find an answer, or they're going to be staring down elimination on Haven, a map they haven't played in the open qualifier whatsoever.
Now note, T1 have plenty of ultimates to work with, right? Gen.G goes aggressive and tries to get onto the A site. The 103 is going to be traded in kind from both of the Sovas. Nobody has gone down yet. A bit of information was gathered, but all lives still preserved. Brax holding down Hell. He's going to get a chance on the win. He's able to take care of him, and the Neural Theft will give everything away.
Man, Brax doing a player one cosplay there, just holding down. Let's see if he can find a couple more picks. He does get one wade, at least for the time being. He's just trying to survive, but unfortunately, it's not going to be the case. Tony Montana drops down, is dazed. He's going to be taken down by Sean, but somehow T1 able to answer back. AZK having a frenzy up above, but Sean is a factor. He is always a factor. 40 seconds remain. Sean trying to push forward. There's an op on the opposite side. First shot's not going to connect, but the spike's in a tough spot. Skadoodle finds the shot. 10 HP and a dream. And T1 answer back.
Both highlight players, right? We've talked about Sean. We've talked about Skadoodle. Both of them have lit up the kill feed. They've oftentimes played heroically, really, Herculean efforts for their squads. For it to go down to a 1v1 like that was just, it was just beautiful. And the other thing is, it wasn't just that it was a 1v1. T1, to say that T1 needed that round might be the grossest understatement of the entire year. They had lost 8 in a row. Financially, they were broken. We were starting to have conversations about Haven and what the heck's going to happen. We don't know if they're any good at it. And that round win really pauses all of that conversation, right? Gen.G wins that. We can essentially wrap up the map. But T1 winning that keeps things close.
Close indeed, and Win trying to get a little closer to the opposition as he tailwinds forward. A standard setup here for Gen.G, but when you've got Daze, the turret just mowing down the entryway, it's difficult for Gen.G to survive. It's all down to Win in a 1v3, and it is possible, but he's paranoid at the current moment, trying to use the cloud smoke to give himself some space. But unfortunately, it's T1 that come out on top. Another desperate round. Well, not really so desperate, but another important round for them. Gen.G economy slowly starting to slip away. But if they lose this one, they'll be at max loss bonus, and their economy will kind of just bounce right back and default back to normal. 4 rounds remain in this first map. Someone's got to give. We'll see who it is in this upcoming round.
And this is going to be full guns across the way. Skadoodle's going to be bringing an operator. Win will as well. The one thing to note is it looks like player 1's not going to have enough money in the bank to bring a full armor. It's going to be light. And we're freaking knotted up at 10 here, folks. Again, this is an elimination series. One of these two squads is going home for this opening map to be as close as it is. I mean, how more could you possibly ask for as a fan of Valorant?
Take flight.
This time, Gen.G having a little bit more presence towards the center. Sometimes we'll see them. They're no stranger to 5-stacking and rushing onto a site. We've seen that a lot in the early days of Gen.G's Haven. But to see that in general is a Gen.G trademark. You rush in, no one's expecting 5. No one ever expects 5. Gen.G are kind of like the Spanish Inquisition, except from Quebec. The Quebecois Inquisition coming through, rushing onto site. But this time, Daze is in for a world of hurt. Win's going to find him, lock him down. ACK's got a huge opportunity here to mow down 2. He's going to find 2. Gimon will trade him back, and now it's a 3v3.
30 seconds
Brax making it a 2v3.
Yeah, Gen.G still has the spike in tow, so it's not like that's been lost. Brax through the cage is able to get 1. It's just going to drop things down to 1 for Gen.G, and that's player 1. He has the spike. Looks like he's going to try to actually work his way out. That's bloody brilliant. He's going to get out, but the problem is he doesn't have a ton of time to make it all the way over there, so he's forced back into this situation. Skadoodle with the operator narrowly misses, just grazes him, but it doesn't matter. Spider was there to take care of him. Player 1 out, T1 with the lead.
Oh, things are starting to look really scary in the Gen.G camp. Economy is slowly being drained. This may be one of the last and final rounds to have a stable economy. That's why you're seeing the question mark decision. Do we soft buy? Do we force up? How do we want to play this one out? They are on max loss bonus, so it's not like they're getting not a lot coming in. They'll be 2,900 from the previous round, 2,900 if they lose this one. But T1 are ever so close to closing out this first map. A map that we had said that if they close this one out, we will likely see a 3-map series. But the fact that Gen.G has kept this so close, T1 have to be feeling the pressure from this attacking roster.
Gen.G with Win as the tip of the spear are looking to establish control on B. Smokes go down, Win goes up, he dashes forward, he sees 1, and he's met by the cold bullet of an operator from Skadoodle. Skadoodle still trying to hold that down and keep things at bay as he's just getting pushed around the smokes. There's Liz, but he hits it through the smoke anyway. Are you kidding me? Skadoodle does it again.
Of course it's Skadoodle. Who else would be able to pull such a feat off? Gen.G still have to get that spike down. It is in the hands of player 1, but they know Skadoodle is in the cave, and you don't want to poke the bear who's hibernating back there. Skadoodle now going to have to deal with the closeness of player 1. He does have a Phantom, so he's swapped off of the powerful weapon. The spike is now down. This is going to be a little bit of a tougher spot. Tailwind's out. Gimon looking for him, but there's too many players to focus up on. T1 on map point.
All of the momentum that Gen.G had going, gone. 8 rounds in a row, and we're having an entirely different conversation. On match point, They're not going to have the money to buy full armor. You see Mikhail's going to be bringing in a Bulldog. Sean is trying to mull over what he's going to bring to the fight as well. Things looked so dire, Simo, for T1, but it was after that pause, they regained, they collected themselves, and they have come out of the gate swinging. This easily could have gone the rest of the way for Gen.G. Again, they had everything that they wanted, but T1 have stood strong, and they've pushed this thing to match point. I'm so impressed by their resilience.
You know, I honestly would love to revisit this map because obviously we've seen it unfold before our very eyes, but I feel like there's some things that we have missed. Because T1 just had a tactical pause and they just reset and like won 4 in a row. And I would love to go back and see how that was executed because I'm still a little dumbfounded. What was the change that was necessary for T1 to find opportunities like that? What were they reading on the Gen.G movement? Because now it's just down to 2, just down to 1.
Wow.
It's player 1 against an army of T1. And the recon bolt's not going to make it any easier. He does find a pick there near the end onto Spider, but Dazed finding the last and final frag of the map. T1 take it 13-10 on Ascent, a map that both teams were incredibly comfortable on, but we're going to be moving on to Gen.G's home turf on Haven shortly.
It's just unreal. Absolutely unreal. Again, I mentioned the resilience out of T1, but I really can't stress that enough. Gen.G had full control, right? Like, this is a T1 roster that I think, unfortunately, historically, in a position like that, could have easily just folded, right? They have no momentum. Everything is piling up against them. They've been getting pushed around for the last 8 rounds, but for them to stand firm there, for them to pivot, and for them to make adjustments and win the following 4 is just really impressive. This T1 roster, while they find themselves on the loser side of things, are proving that they are no pushover anymore. The addition of Spider, the adjustments that they've made, are just really impressive right now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to wait no further as we're going to throw to a quick little break. When we return, it's going to be Haven selected by Gen.G, and T1 gets side selection, which they will pick the defense to start. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be right back after this.